So let's start off by resetting our interface by going up to layout here, 2 by 3. So we're looking at the same thing. Generally move this over. If you're working on a laptop or a smaller screen, I'll oftentimes dock my project underneath my hierarchy and give myself even more room. I have a pretty good screen size here, so I'm okay, but just so you can sort of see that. Another useful tool is if you go to Window and you go to the Asset Store, you could download ProBuilder. If you're using 2019, so this is ProBuilder here. If you're using 2019 or later, you don't want to use this one. Notice that it's grayed out. The reason for it is they want you to go to Window, Package Manager, and then in the Package Manager, we'll give it a second. There we go. You want to look for ProBuilder here, and it'll sync itself to the latest version that works with whatever you're working with. So I'm going to hitting installing there. I'm going to let that install. You're going to get a dialog here for importing scripts. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to right click and close out my asset store. You'll notice you have a new option here called Tools ProBuilder. Let's start off by exploring the ProBuilder window. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what this is it's a modeling package built right into Unity. It actually was created by a past student of mine, and I had the honor of hanging out with him during the Game Developers Conference last year. We talked a lot about the new features that are coming out, and I'm really excited about all these things, the ones that are coming out in the new release. So let's start off by just creating a shape that we can edit. So I'm going to assume you have no knowledge of Unity, so I'm going to kind of be a little redundant in my setup here. So under new shape here, I'm going to click plus, and this gives me my options here. You can see here's a cube. Now when I originally made this project, it was going to be a 2D game, and then I decided, well, maybe it'd be fun to make a 3D game. So I'm going to uncheck this 2D option here, so we're looking at it in 3D view. I'm also going to go to tools here, or I'm sorry, window, and I'm going to go to jet rendering and go to my lighting settings, and I'm just going to turn on generate lighting and hit save scene. In my scenes window here, I'm going to name this test bed. So this is where I'm going to test out my code. And as the lighting auto generates, it'll start to slowly fill my scene with color. So I'll turn these options on here as well. And for my skybox material, I'm just going to go with the default one. You might have all of this stuff already set up for you. For my sun source, I'm going to see if I can have my direction light in there. Let's go ahead and right click, light, create a directional light. And now you can see my scene is a bit lit. Now this is the default setting inside of Unity. Um, and so I'm going to actually hit local here and just shift my light over a little bit. Now that is our default lighting setting. It's going to give us a pretty good result. Alright, so back to, let's close this out, our shape tool panel. I'm going to go ahead and hit build so it creates this cube for me. I'm going to close my shape tool. What I'm going to do is center pivot here. Now, you probably noticed that I'm rotating around this, and this option highlights here. If you hold Alt and left click, you can rotate around your scene. If you hold the middle mouse button in, you can pan. If you want to rotate around, right now it's just rotating around the world. This cube, hit, with the cube selected, hit F to focus. Now this cube is going to serve as our character, and we'll slowly model out feet and stuff on this object, but for now I'm pretty happy with this as just being my default cube. What my cube though needs, or my player, so let's go ahead and name this player, is it needs something to walk on. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my plus sign here, and under cube I'm going to go ahead and make a plane, and that's going to be my ground plane. I'm going to hit build, and I'm going to center my pivot, that's this guy right here, onto my cube there, and then I'm going to go ahead and zero these out so that it's right below my cube. There we go. I'm going to move my cube just slightly above the ground, and notice that it was already on the move tool, but the way you can access that is by clicking up here or selecting W. Now down here is my game window. This is my camera, and we're going to write some script to get our camera to follow around our cube for now. So what we'll do is we're just going to be essentially working in this window until it's time to script our camera. Alright, so for now I'm going to go ahead and close the ProBuilder window out. By default, you have a scenes folder, but you might not necessarily have a scripts folder. So the way to do that is go to create folder, and I want you to name it scripts. I already happen to have one in this scene. Alright, so let's go and write some simple code to move this character, this cube around. So in my scripts folder, I'm going to right click and go to create C# script. And I'm just going to name this with a capital P, player controller. Now make sure that the spelling of this is correct. If you created it and then went to rename it, what's going to happen is you're going to get errors. One error in particular is this script cannot be found in the scene. And the reason for that is notice that it says player class here, player controller, and then this also says player controller. The script name has to be the same as your class name. Now don't worry too much if you don't know what a class is. We'll get into all that stuff later. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this so it opens up in Visual Studio. You can see popped up my player controller here. Let's do some very basic scripting. Now I'm going to go pretty quickly because we're going to be coding a lot. And so if you miss something, I'll probably repeat it. I'm kind of repetitive in my teaching style. So a couple cool things here is the default setup that Unity gives you is they give you the class created already, this public class, the name of it. Mono behavior is a series of libraries and classes that you can use. And within those libraries and classes, they have things called functions or methods. So this is a function or method. And these are pre-made by Unity and they have a specific purpose. So this one right here is anything we type within these curly braces will, as we start our game, happen. So for example, if I type print hello from start and I save this, I go back into my scene and I attach this script to my player controller here. What you'll notice if I go to my console, let's see, I think it's under general, is when I press play, as my game starts, it actually prints to my console. Let's turn this on so you can see that. Hello from start. So what's really interesting about that is any code that we happen to put inside of here, this print from hello from start, will run. So let's take a look at um, a little bit of an advanced topic, but we'll as I said, a lot of the stuff is going to be repetitive. What we want to do is, as our first thing, is make our character jump, our cube jump. And one way of doing that is doing something called playing with Unity's physics system. And Unity's physics system revolves around 2D and 3D rigid bodies. So let's look at adding that component. So here, if I go to add component and I go to rigid body, you'll see here that it has this option says use gravity and it's checked on. So if I move my cube upward and I press play, what you'll notice is it falls to the earth. Now if I uncheck use gravity and I press play, you'll notice that my cube doesn't work. We've essentially turned off this rigid body component. You also probably noticed that the cube fell through the floor. The reason for that is this plane has a mesh collider on it, but in order to get it to work with physics, you have to turn on convex. You could add a different collider. So if I just type in collider here, you'll notice there's a bunch of different options, box, mesh, so forth. But we'll just stick with our default mesh collider. I'm going to do the same for this guy here. So I'm going to turn on his mesh collider. I guess I'm already assuming that my character is a he. So I'm going to go ahead and press play. And you'll see now it falls and it sits on the earth, which is good. That's what we want. Now it looks like my convex collider is a little high on my plane. So you can see it's added this box, almost this box collider. And for now, I'm okay with that because we're going to be sculpting terrain in the future and we'll do a different type. Um, so let's do, yeah, I think that's good for now. We're already at 9 minutes. I'm going to pause the video and then in the next one, we'll go ahead and um, start scripting our player controller.